Good morning, my creative collective. Welcome to lesson 20 for A Course in Creativity, 80/20 Vision in Technicolor, which is lesson 20 from A Course in Miracles, which is I am determined to see. Just as a side note, I recognize that my hair and self are a little disheveled. I prioritized a really long run this morning over looking pretty for this video, so bear with me. Side note, I hope you're taking care of yourself. Second side note, I guess, I hope you're taking care of yourself through the retrogrades and whatever energy is afoot. I know it's been really intense for me, and if that has been the case for you, some tools that I use are using these particular, I guess, principles or things along those lines. So maybe they'll help you. Don't prioritize this knowledge over that of your doctor. So just take that for what you will. But there's some great recipes and principles in these books. Bonus, this author's totally queer, and her son presented to Congress in terms of overturning DOMA back in the day. So, but anyways, this is one of the books. So that's one. And then using the principles in here and the smoothie recipes from this one. I abhor diet culture though, so let's not pay attention to that. This is a book that I absolutely love. So just if you are looking for some help in that way, I don't know. I'm sure everybody's fine, but the energies are a bit, the energies are a bit intense. Is the best way to describe it. We are still determined to see, though. The beauty of this lesson, we are still determined to see. So while I was out this morning, I was running around and loving it. The smell of cedars and trees in the morning in the woods around the track are so nice. It's a delight. But this particular lesson was on my mind as I was going around, and I thought to myself, what does it mean to be determined to see in the context of where we are collectively and perhaps individually right now? And I thought to myself, it's really just about the willingness to hear. It's about the willingness to show up. It's about the willingness to be heard as well. I think the determination to see is really about knowing that there's something more going on than what we can see in terms of intuition. And this is a call inward, right? This is just a call inward to use the ears of your heart, as it were, to use the senses of your heart to perceive the world from that place of stillness and the present moment as opposed to anything else, right? Now, running for me is a deeply embodied thing. It's a way that I can sink into my body and feel all of it. It's so beautiful. I know some people love yoga. I haven't been able to get into it as deeply as I do running. It's just such a powerful meditation for me. This lesson is also about being willing to empty your mind and to set an intention to empty so that you can be refilled by something bigger than yourself and beyond yourself as well. So this is, to me, really about sinking back into the present moment with a willingness, right? And we don't have to do everything at once. That's not how that all works, right? When I started running, the first time I ever ran, because why wouldn't I do this? It's a testament to the air and fire in my chart, I guess. But the first time I ever ran, I didn't train and I just ran 7K because I was like, well, I want to run and I'm going to keep up with my friends. So that's fine. I wouldn't recommend doing that. But as I started to get into more of a pace to get into that, hit that number on a more regular basis instead of a sporadic one that was not so great. I started to train, and I would run along trails in the city that I was living in at the time, and there were lampposts along the way. So I would think to myself, okay, just get to the next lamppost and see how you feel. Okay, just get to the next lamppost and see how you feel. And then what I ended up doing when I worked in corporate was build this into a goal development program. That there was like a director of enterprise or something like that was, she loved it and wanted to use that and change it up a bit for her leaders, for her team. But it was just that idea of like, we don't have to do everything at one time. It was the bigger plan. It was sort of, having these different goals, and then every 6 months or so, there would be different lampposts that you could break down by 3 months, and then into 6 months, and then into 12. So it was broken down in that way. And what are the lampposts? Like, get to the next lamppost. We don't have to get to the end of the race. We don't have to get to the end of the goal. Just the next lamppost. What does that look like? And to me, that is so aligned with this willingness. Just willingness. We don't have to figure everything out today. We don't have to do everything today. We just have to be willing. And that's it. Spirit fills in the rest. Spirit fills in the rest. We don't have to do everything. That's not what we're here for, right? We're not here to get it done. Abraham Hicks quote. So one of the quotes I love from this particular lesson, I'll read it to you. It's in section 3 is the first one. So first and second, your decision to see is all that vision requires. What you want is yours. Do not mistake the little effort that is asked of you for an indication that our goal is of little worth. So good, so good. And I think about this in terms of creativity. We don't have to show up at the canvas with this big vision of what we want to make. Sometimes it's as simple as standing there in awareness of how we feel and knowing that what the next brush stroke is going to look like, what the next note is going to look like. You know, when I would write songs, the guitar's over here, but when I haven't done it for a while, but when I taught myself how to play, and I almost out of this like deep mistrust of authority, I started to teach myself how to play, and I wouldn't think about the end of the song. I would just think about it note by note and pick it up by ear or read tabs or things like that. So it's a very similar process to this, right? We don't have to show up knowing everything. All that we have to know is how the first thing that we want to do is going to look. And even then, sometimes we know by doing. Sometimes we know by doing brushstrokes. We know by writing out the next sentence. We know by understanding what word we want to start a particular sentence with. What mood or feeling do we want to imbue a poem with, right? In terms of photo poetry, what do we want to paint on that particular photo in terms of how we want people to feel when they see it? We don't have to know what it's all going to look like. We just have to know that first one, and we have to be willing. So I am determined to see. So Karen Casey is a brilliant teacher of A Course in Miracles, and also the author of several books, and I really enjoyed reading her books. They helped me as I kind of progressed through some healing that had to be done in my 20s related to family members who drank a lot and who were alcoholics, right? And so dealing with that growing up in my immediate family was tough. So these literatures were really helpful, and rereading books about things like detachment and all of that stuff were equally helpful to revisit recently. But this book in particular, there was a specific line in it. I'll read it to you, but I wanted to show you the book so that if you were inclined and if you wanted to pursue the knowledge, you could also find it too. But on page 78 of her book, the chapter Discover Your Own Lessons, there's this one quote that really, I think, applies here profoundly. So it says, you can't hear your inner voice if your mind is on someone else. You can't hear your inner voice if your mind is on someone else. And I think that this also applies to not just someone, but something. So this is where emptying ourselves so that we can hear what's actually happening. Running is really important because for me, it connects me in that way. What connects you, I don't know, but this is so connected to that willingness to see, because we have to integrate these things into our day and into our lives that empty us first. They have to empty us first, right? And how are we emptying? Like, I have a very busy mind. In fact, I keep a small notebook with me most of the time. I joke with some coworkers that it's my emotional support notebook because I just get ideas all the time. So I'll be writing them down constantly, right? And that's also something I would recommend too, because that too is a form of emptying, right? And you don't have to pay attention to every single thought that crosses your mind. But for the ones that are great, it means that they're no longer spinning. You can just put them somewhere, right? And make peace with them and let them flow through you as opposed to holding on to them somewhere inside you, right? So that's also important to keep in mind as a tool and an important part of being willing. So your creative spark for today is not necessarily artistic, but it is attention. So it does require your attention, much as I would recommend working through the workbook lesson itself. But this is also working through things in terms of your perspective and perception. So this is related to what you would be willing to change. So look around your day, what you do. Just take an inventory of what you're doing, right? Take a look at what you're doing and ask yourself, what would I be willing to change? What would I be willing to change? And not in terms of, changing everything all at once. What we're really talking about doing here is, what would I be willing to change to let spirit in? What would I be willing to change to feel that in the present moment? What would I be willing to change to make myself more accessible to the moment? How would I shift my perception? How am I willing to change this? And sometimes all it takes is not a thing at all, but just stopping in the moment and taking 10 deep breaths and feeling where you are. Sometimes I get overwhelmed with sensory stuff because it's too much. So sometimes eye contact is tough for me. because I feel like I'm looking into someone's like freaking lifetime here and everywhere else. So it can be overwhelming, right? So eye contact with this camera is super easy because it's a lens, right? So it's a bit different, but I've tried to focus instead on the color of someone's eyes. I think I've mentioned this in another video, but I've tried to focus on the color of someone's eyes. And for me, that is the willingness. That's like being willing. That's a way to show up and to be present, because there's a part of me, it's not about running or, taking off in the presence of presence. But it is trying to ground how everything feels like it's coming in sometimes. So, and I think that's symptomatic of, I guess, awakening. Although mine happened several years ago, in a big way. Which, when it comes to being willing, there's something where you just have to listen to that. You have to listen to that very significantly. I took a psychic development class, and in that class, the person leading it, had ideas and thoughts in her head. So she had thoughts that she was matching with feelings, and she turned her back on the class, and we were all sitting behind her, and she asked us to I guess, read those thoughts. And it was the ways that I was picking up on things were very specific. And this isn't to be like, I'm amazing, but it was really around that class and in the meditation for that class. So it was a group meditation. There was like a pop at the back of my spine, and I feel like it was a discernible pop, and it wasn't like a back cracking, because I've experienced that before, but it felt like a pop and then something unfurled, and like it just, then everything went up my spine. And then in the days after that, I couldn't really walk past a meat counter even without feeling like I was going to throw up in the grocery store, because I could hear the sounds of the animals. Like it was so visceral, and I will not forget that anytime soon. And then in the days after that, even, I had a headache right here that was just like pulsing. Even to this day, if the trucks show up beside me at an intersection that are carrying animals to a slaughterhouse, I start crying. I can't help it, because I one time made eye contact with one of the animals in it, and it was heartbreaking. So they do know where they're going. The moment that we begin to be willing to see, it is scary. It can feel overwhelming. And even now, there are still layers to my own awakening that are becoming more aware. I'm becoming more aware of. And it's mind-blowing still. So again, we never get it done, right? So I laugh at my own hubris, because here I am thinking that I've had this awakening, and it's, it's fine, and all of this, that, and the other thing, and it's not done. It's not done. This is lesson 20 for A Course in Creativity, 80/20 vision in Technicolor. So if this resonated for you, or you liked it, please feel free to like and subscribe. It helps me to continue to grow this channel and do what I love to do, which is to serve the collective with information, tools, and anything else that comes through. So with that being said, my friends, wherever this finds you on the time-space continuum, morning, afternoon, or night, I hope that it finds you very, very well. Take care, my lovelies.